This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek a medical professional or healthcare provider if you're seeking any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks, everyone.
Clearly, this is not Yvette.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I mean, it's her male form, I guess you could say. But Evie's doing the single mom bossing it, way too busy. There's a lot going on. Kiddos are finishing school, meaning her kiddos finishing school, and her clinic's extra busy because kiddos are leaving school, and she's a pediatrician. So just a lot happening. I'm going on vacation. We're going on vacation. So conflicting of schedules, and we really wanted to get this episode out for you guys. We didn't want to just like leave you guys hanging with the part 1 up and then no part 2. So he's gonna step in for Evie for
Hopefully I can fit all of the shoes.
the second part. Yeah, let's see, because he tends to be a little more serious than what you guys are used to with Evie and I. But
See if liquid courage helps.
okay, and of course I got podcast dog here as well. Anyway, so yeah, like we had said, for the second part we were gonna go ahead and talk about being on. I'm just getting pawed right now by Brownie because you know what's new. We're gonna talk about Omnivore, since Evie and I in the last episode told you all about veganism, being a vegan, how to even transition into being a vegan if that's something you want to try out. You also don't even have to only do vegan. There's a lot of different varieties of it. You could do what she had introduced me to, which I didn't even know existed. Had you ever heard of vegans?
I have no idea.
I had never heard of that.
Please explain.
So what she told me is that she had met someone in med school or residency, either or.
Okay.
And yeah, get used to it because he's gonna.
Apparently he doesn't agree.
This is Brownie. For those of you that are listening, he's just pawing at Mario because you start touching him, that's what's gonna happen. You have to anyway. So just don't even. Anyway, so vegan. What she had told me is that she had a friend, and apparently if they go to a party and there's free food, and even if it's not vegan, like she feels bad not eating that food just because she's vegan, because then it's like wasting food because she's
That's
not
a freeloader. That's what that is.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. So he's also very much not PC. So we're going to have that in this episode too. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, for those of you that don't know Mario from episodes prior, he's my husband. He's a family medicine physician here in Miami as well. So yeah, there's those credentials there for you. Anyway, hence why he's, stepping in for Evie as well. So back to that. So yeah, vegan. Then there's vegetarianism, which obviously is definitely not vegan because you could eat a little bit of like animal-based products like honey or something like that. And then of course pescatarian, blah, 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 blah. Those, different diets. But today in this episode, we're going to stick to omnivore diet, which is the most common one, the most popular one really that's out there. And do you want to go ahead and describe what an omnivore diet is, Mario?
Sure, let's dive right in. So the omnivore diet is a type of eating plan that includes both animal and plant-based foods. This means that you can follow the omnivore diet. You can eat a wide variety of foods, including meats, dairy products, fruits, vegetables, and grains. I think it's just kind of a more well-balanced all-around diet in the sense of it includes everything. Not saying that any diet in particular is correct. I think everyone's body's different, and some people respond really great to vegan diets. Some people respond really great to omnivore diets.
It's a personal choice.
100%. 100%. But I guess what we're trying to just do here is highlight some of the basic ideas of what the omnivore diet is.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And then some of the key features of, an omnivore diet, which if you're an omnivore or at least grew up being, whatever it is, you may be very familiar with this. So one of the biggest things is that it has a lot of variety. Okay. So you can enjoy different types of foods from both animals and plants. So you're not only sticking to just one. And this includes, of course, like I just mentioned, beef, chicken, apples, broccoli, fish, grains, rice, wheat, anything. So you are just free to have whatever it is that you want, regardless of how it was made or where it came from.
So one of the things here that was highlighting the nutritional balance, I think that's a great aspect to think about, because you really can get your whole dietary needs from both diets. But I really feel in the sense of the omnivore diet, you have a nutritional balance between vitamins, including B12, iron, folate, protein, all those type of components all in one. And it's an easy, and then you don't have to break the bank. You can have some variety. We always talk about in something in healthcare, the idea of when you go shopping, when you shop from the outside instead of shopping within the inside, you're having a better nutritional value. Unfortunately, it's also sometimes more expensive, taking that into consideration. But if you think of that process of when you go to a grocery store, or you're shopping from the exteriors, you think about your dairy, your meats, your vegetables.
So things that have
perishable.
Perishable.
Yeah.
So more perishable items, because they have to be refrigerated or cooled or something to that effect. And we had talked about it actually last week, that not all forms of vitamins are vegan. So then you also have to be careful with that. Of course, if you're in this very regimented, strict vegan diet, you have to be careful where you're getting these vitamins from, because some of them are animal derived. That ice is going to drive me crazy in the editing. Just letting you know. Maybe consider a straw. It's going to look very weird.
Yeah, I know.
But just anyway, so you have to be very careful with everything. You have to look at every label and just know where everything comes from, versus being in an omnivore diet, you're not really having to worry too much about that. So again, this goes right into flexibility. So the omnivore diet is obviously very flexible, even for that example that I just gave about the vitamins. It allows anybody to just adjust your food choices based on your own preferences, your health needs, or even just your ethical preferences. And this flexibility obviously can help you maintain a more balanced diet, without having to be so restrictive or having to worry too much. Maybe the one vitamin from that one source that is purely plant-based, they have it out of stock because everything's out of stock these days. So then you're kind of running low on that. It's just, it's a little easier to follow through, especially these days, I think. So yeah, do you want to tell me how omnivore diets compare to a vegan diet?
Vegan diet excludes all animal products, focusing solely on plant-based foods. Omnivore diet includes both animal, plant-based food products. The fundamental difference is that there's transition from vegan to omnivore diet would involve reintroducing meat, dairy, and other animal products into your meals. Kind of comes without saying. I think one of the benefits of the omnivore diet, me personally, and again, this is just my personal anecdotal information, but I feel that even the idea of meat, I know the ethical consideration always comes up, and that is something to consider as always. There's a bunch of options now that you see in grocery stores. There's something that's being really pushed now. It's something called regenerative farming. Better said. And regenerative farming, what the idea of that is that they are allowing these animals to live in a natural environment where they're not in a cage setting, they're not unethically processed, farmed. And really, actually, a lot of these farms have become carbon neutral, which is amazing. So that's a benefit all around. It's
one of the big ethical challenges,
right.
when you're looking
Obviously,
at
when you
things
think
that you eat and all that.
Of monocultural farming, when it's just one single type of, let's say, corn. So there are definitely some benefits to both. But what I'm trying to say is that the idea that you can ethically get sourced meat products is a great idea, and that you can feel that you're doing the right choice. Not to mention that what you're getting is something that's coming from an organic or something that's not processed or doesn't have the hormones. I always say this, and I consider it's not cheap. It's not cheap, and that's a very difficult conception and hard process to kind of get through. But it's just one of my 2 cents when I'm thinking about omnivore diet. I love in the sense of the aspect of introducing game meat. That's a great concept that I love to have in my diet. I really think it's a lean, high rich in protein, iron. Honestly, the beneficial health benefits from it, I think are kind of understated. Now more people are introducing it, and you can kind of actually easily even get it. Not to put a plug in, but Wild Fork is one of the
we're not sponsored at all.
not sponsored, but one of these chains that I've seen that have freeze dry or frozen.
Well, yeah,
meat
they
products.
have, for instance, if you're wondering what exactly is game, so like elk, whitetail deer,
Right.
More exotic type of meats like that instead of just beef, pork, or chicken or fish. So you have more choices, and yeah, you are seeing that in more supermarkets even like these days. Like we're down here in Florida, so Publix is king. Like in Texas, HEB is king. Over here in Florida, and I think some parts of like Georgia and whatnot, and one of the Carolinas or something like that. Publix is extremely popular, and I think I saw the other day ground elk.
Yeah, no, they
One of
have
the
brown elk.
Publix, yes, and so I'm like, oh, and bison's another one that I've been seeing, like bison burgers or whatever.
Right.
Like that one's a lot more popular these days too, which I mean, we didn't grow up seeing that. In the
No,
supermarkets.
of course
I
not.
mean,
And
that wasn't around.
honestly, I would say in the past 5
Yeah,
years that
yeah,
it's
something
really
like
become
that.
popular, where unless you would go hunting, you get it
Right,
yourself and you
right.
process it, or you would
Or you had to go to one of these specialty, like,
Right, butchers,
meat market,
yeah,
meat
meat
markets
markets.
or whatever. Yeah.
But now the fact that you have an easy access to it, and honestly, when you look at the price difference, it's not an extreme difference
Right.
when you're thinking about it.
Yeah,
But
mostly when you're looking at like organic or grass-fed or whatever type of beef
Right, right.
versus like this type of game meat. Yeah,
Right.
it might be almost the same price, if not.
Right. And one of the things that I think what Julie was here highlighting was one of the benefits, improved gut health, right? So an omnivore diet can contribute to a diverse gut microbiome, which is beneficial for digestive health and overall well-being. I think this is a huge benefit overall. We're seeing this. A lot of research is being, pumped into this concept of gut health. We're seeing overall benefits.
Yeah, it's huge.
We know that the gut microbiome has a benefit in the sense of
Mental health.
immune protection,
yeah.
cancer. We've seen that.
Yes,
there's
that's right.
Simple as H. pylori, which is a bacteria that you can contract and causes one of the main contributing bacteria causing ulcers, has a strong connection and correlation to cancer. Of course, obviously, if you have a well balanced diet, and I'm saying that you're going to reduce everything of cancer, but you reduce the amount of, let's say, byproducts that are not processed. I think overall you have an improved gut health.
Right. Yeah. I mean, unless you live under a rock, all these news outlets have been lately for the past month or more been talking about ultra processed foods and all the studies that have come out on it and how harmful it is to people.
Another great concept is enhanced brain function, right? So consuming a balanced mix of animal plant foods provides essential nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, and iron, which are crucial for brain health and cognitive function. Funny enough, there's a lot of literature now being published on what they call the omega-3 fatty acids.
I just saw that this morning. Yeah.
DHAs, and the not only for heart but for lung benefits as well.
Yeah.
So again, I think the take home real message here is if you have a balanced diet, if you feel that morally it suits your ethical considerations, and at the end of the day, less processed.
Yeah.
you-
Better.
You're on the right track.
Exactly.
A strong immune system is a huge component. A wide range of nutrients found in both plant and animal products, including vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, can sort of a healthy immune system. We kind of touched on that already.
Yeah, pretty much everything that we've mentioned, and we even mentioned in the last episode. Because you're in an omnivore diet, it's easier, even in just not even, you don't have to worry so much about getting fortified foods, you know, to make up for nutrients that you may be deficient in because you're strictly vegan or anything like that. In the omnivore diet, you may not have to worry about looking for and making sure that all or the majority of your foods are fortified. You could just eat as long as you're in a balanced diet in the omnivore diet, then you should be okay. And then,
Yeah, one of the things, you know, I think obviously the protein, you know, the health benefits of, you know,
it's easier to get more protein,
obviously,
you know,
and
in an omnivore diet.
We're just kind of highlighting the cardiovascular health benefits. You know, plant-based diets are often highlighted for heart health benefits. But when you think about heart health, you obviously think about the Mediterranean diet, even for diabetics or people who have, you know, cardiovascular risk factors. You always think about this. And they're actually starting to look into it and trying to pinpoint what exactly.
Well, they had mentioned recently the olive
Olive
oil.
oil, right? Olive oil decreasing the overall chances of dementia.
Right. That's what it was.
So, you know,
Yeah.
again, obviously more studies. You know, I always say,
And I think certain olive oils, depending on how they're made, could be vegan too.
right.
So, you know,
Right.
that
Yeah.
doesn't have to contribute only to the omnivore diet, but it's one of the things, like we had mentioned in the beginning, that the nice thing about the omnivore diet is that you can mix and match and do all these things.
I think always something to consider. I know it's kind of our 2 cents of just public announcement of when it comes to like research, always look at in the sense of your source.
Yeah.
Look at the type of research you're reading into, because I know people do a lot of this for diets. There's different types of studies. There's observationals. There's clinical studies. You know, people always criticize science or medicine, and I always tell people, look, it's only as good as the moment of information we have at that moment.
Right.
And I think as a physician and someone in healthcare, I have to be adaptive to times, and things change and information changes. And I think also that's something that comes along with diet, because let's face it, when we were kids, we never heard anything like,
Oh no.
you know, you would go to McDonald's and have a Happy Meal, and guess what? You were happy.
To encounter like a vegan back then, it was strictly because of health
it was-
reasons.
It was
Like health reasons,
yeah,
because
find a unicorn.
it was health reasons or religious reasons, but it wasn't like it is today, that it's a lot more common that it's just by choice, you know, because you're making a choice either for health or ethical or go on. But back then as a kid, at least that I have memory in, I'm sure it's different considering wherever it is that you're listening from, but at least for us here in South Florida, Cuban background, etc., it was only really like for health reasons, because you're, you know, trying to fix something, help something out, or religious, cultural reasons, something like that. I cannot remember it being just because, oh yeah, I've been reading into it and I want to give this a shot because it might be healthier for me or whatever, just because of choice. You know, I don't remember that, but now it's very much a thing.
I know we kind of touched on it, and bringing it back, but the fact of the greenhouse gas emissions,
right.
Again, obviously,
It's one of the things why people switch.
but I really do, you know, think that there is a benefit. Obviously, omnivore diets lead to higher greenhouse gas emissions. They say that's largely because of the meat and dairy products whose production involves high levels of methane and nitrous oxide emissions.
Like I had mentioned in the episode prior, cow farts.
But I would really encourage you to look into the idea of regenerative farming, and how we can.
But we gotta give that time. That's not as common as like these big
100%.
you know,
and I don't know
companies that I'm not gonna mention names, but
100%,
massive companies.
Agree. No, and let's face it, we're not there where we can say mass production.
Exactly.
So, I get it.
So that's the main thing here. So you got to look at it in numbers. Like, the numbers are
you have to feed America
right now, at least right now in the year 2024. Hopefully, in the next several years, we could find a new way, like this way that you were mentioning, to mass produce in that route instead. So yeah, like everything, there's always going to be health risks. The omnivore diet is not the answer for everything. Just like being vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian or whatever, that it doesn't just blanket. There's no one size fits all. There's always going to be a health risk to everything. So we're going to just touch upon a few of the health risks for specifically the omnivore diet.
So one of
this one you're very aware of, given
Yeah.
your specialty.
and funny enough, though, I think we're starting to kind of see that there's always two sides of the coin. Right? That obviously that the initial studies always showed that diets and high meat products had higher cholesterol content, and so then higher LDL, and then obviously then they made the jump then to cardiovascular disease. I think again goes back to the quality of the meat that you're eating, type of meat you're eating, and now we're seeing that maybe it's possibly not just LDL. You have your statin medications that lower your LDL levels.
LDL is the bad cholesterol. So you have two cholesterols. Remember?
Yeah, hypothetically, yeah.
You know,
The quote unquote bad LDL, bad cholesterol.
So
There's LDL and HDL.
HDL is the quote unquote good
Right.
cholesterol. So you got to have an even balance between the two to be in a good range per se, in quote. So if you have, like, let's say the LDL high above range, then that's when they're like, okay, well, you should take a statin, which is a medication to bring it down, or you got to change your diet.
And it's
all
not
these
just
things.
based off that. We have calculators that literally have your cardiovascular risk disease score. So it takes into consideration not just your LDL, your age, your A1C, prior events. Again, I think really the overall message is that if you do have a balanced diet, and even, I know we're not even touching on this, but some people even bring up the carnivore diet.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
yeah.
whole, we could probably do a whole
Yeah.
different podcast on that.
Right. I mean,
But-
people have podcasts on just vegan,
Right.
on just
Obviously.
diets. So that's why we're like filtering to vegan and omnivore, just the two filtering because I mean,
Not
it's
easy,
a
not easy.
never-ending
But
subject.
we're going to
you
try
know?
our best here.
And we broke it up in two because it's
Right.
that instance. But anyway, so
Or sponsored
yeah,
podcast
for
on
those of you that are watching on YouTube, yeah, you could see Brownie just living his best life as he typically is. Anyway,
The other thing we were talking about, omnivore diets can lead to an excess intake of saturated fats, cholesterol, as we discussed. Vegan
so
diets.
nutrient excess,
Right.
because again, you have to be in a balanced diet. You can't just
The other,
Free for all.
one of the notes here is indicating that vegan diets tend to be lower in saturated fats and higher dietary fibers, but I would and phytonutrients, which contribute to better heart health. The only conceptual idea, and I've seen this before and I've heard this before, and doctor, I'm vegan, and I'm like, okay, so how do you have your vegetables? sometimes I fry them. I'm like, well, then you're losing all the benefits. At that point, you're kind of just
yeah,
it really has it's lost its benefit, right?
Right.
Talking about metabolic syndrome, we can think about that as obesity, high triglycerides, high sugars, that component where we're starting to see leading even to like high blood pressure, where it's not just one thing that leads to unfortunate outcomes, but an overall kind of picture. I think again, omnivore diet and vegan diets both offer benefits in both aspects that can prevent those that prevent that condition. It's just a matter of making the right choices.
Now, when we're talking about risks, it's a risk because if you don't do a balanced diet, but that's again, like the example that you had said, if you're a vegan, but then you're frying everything, then you're it's a moot point at that point. So the same thing for omnivore. If you're going to go ahead and just eat cheeseburgers, high in fat meats like sausages or whatever every day, that defeats the point as well. And you're no longer having a balanced diet. You're going to go ahead and find some of these risks occurring to you. So everything is in balance, both in vegan and in omnivore diets. And that's how you could kind of get yourself away from these risks that we had just lightly mentioned in both senses. So you have to be careful. You have to see what you're eating. You have to be lean. You have to be healthy. Pick out what you're eating. You can't just fry everything. You can't just have everything as a sausage-filled fest, as an omnivore diet, as an example. So if you do that, then you're going to avoid these risks more than likely.
Right.
If you're a healthy individual, you don't have underlying problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so all those things. But
I think really the take-home message all around is you have to see what works best for yourself, what fits into your moral and health benefit, and at the same time, really trying to avoid the ultra processed. If you do an omnivore diet, and I think the problem is kind of like this umbrella terminology, vegan or omnivore. Like, I think you kind of have to dissect it a little bit better as a consumer and just pick the right things that are best for you.
Right.
I think overall, there's benefits to both. It's just what works for you, and you have to really consider the information. Like Julie was mentioning, looking at labels, kind of seeing where you're getting your groceries from. That's a huge component.
Yeah. They may be more expensive, but maybe you could tweak some things around. It's just, that's why food is such a personal thing. It's really a personal thing. Like, for instance, why am I an omnivore and not a vegan? Especially after doing all the research and seeing all the things and whatever and yada, yada, yada. And all the studies that are coming out about being a vegan and all those things. Well, it's my preference. I'm a picky eater at heart. So it's hard for me out of preference to just go into one type of diet. So the omnivore diet works for me because of the flexibility, the variety, and all that stuff. Now, if you're the type of person that you don't really care for meats, it's not really in your palate, you've never really cared for it, then maybe the vegan diet or a vegetarian diet or a pescatarian diet might be better for you, and you may just, it's easier for you. There's cultures out there that just naturally fall into a more pescatarian diet or whatnot, so it's just such a personal thing, that it's hard to do an umbrella over everything. And as Evie and I, and now yourself, have mentioned numerous amount of times, there's going to be a risk to everything, and you have to do things in moderation, and you have to eat balanced, especially when it comes to diets. You have to be balanced, because if not, yes, there is risk for cancers or obesities and all these things. In either diet, in any diet. And now I have my dogs grooming themselves in the background, so if you're
I
not
was petting Max while
if you're not seeing it, you're hearing it. Max. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that is part 2 of vegan versus omnivore. Thank you guys again. It was shorter, definitely. So we just wanted to wrap it up for you. And of course, I had Mario having to rush in and step in, because me doing this alone was going to be really awkward and weird. So, and I'm not a doctor, so I live with one, might as well pull him in for it, right? Anyway, if you guys have any requests about anything that we've talked about in this episode or the previous one or any other episodes, let us know, comment it, etc. I will go ahead and bump that up in the list as typical. Thank you, everyone, for writing, subscribing, commenting, following us, all the wonderful things you guys are doing for us out there. You guys are amazing. And also check out our Patreon. We have a Patreon. We have, I think it's now... Yeah, it's right now, as of this recording, we're over 40 episodes in there. Full episodes, completely different topics, formatted just like this, but completely different topics. A little bit more unhinged with Evie and I, because we're hidden behind that paywall, and you'd be helping out the show. So check that out on patreon.com/20 Medicine Podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Like, comment, review us on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc.
Check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Funny Medicine Podcast. Our Gmail is funnymedicine305@gmail.com. And remember, we are not diagnosing you.
Definitely not. Just funny stuff.
See you later, guys.